Welcome everybody to another edition of Hot Program. I am your host with the most, all the way from the East Coast, and as always, I am in airplane mode. And now a man who in 2023 had so much free time that nobody would pay him for it. A man who needs no introduction. How you doing today, my one black friend?
I am doing pretty well, other than my back pain from falling on Christmas
Yeah,
Day.
you were saying you fell. How did that happen?
Cleaning the bathroom. Nothing awesome, nothing great or glorious. Just cleaning the bathroom, and the floor was slippery, and down I went. And day one, just my knee and right foot hurt. Day two, back started to hurt a little bit. By the end of day two, there was profanity.
Oh, damn.
Lots of it, and still that way. So,
You might have to get that checked out.
I got it checked out yesterday. They said they sent my results. I haven't. They came this morning. I haven't looked to see if I have broken anything, but I think it's just muscle spasms. The doctor seemed to think so.
Man, yeah, that would be better. I definitely hope you haven't broken anything.
Me too. But
Yeah,
it
that would be
proves
rough.
if she's right. If she's right, it proves I have muscle somewhere. Yeah.
And yeah, how you enjoyed the married life otherwise? So at least you weren't home alone. You actually have,
Exactly. So my
yeah.
my tenants moved out last week. The one left 2 days ago, so last
Did
week.
they voluntarily move out? Were you like, I'm getting married, I gotta go?
It's funny. One had lived here almost 7 years, and I told him, I said, yeah, when I get married, it'll be time to end the whole renting out rooms. My house is a big house, so but I want to sell this place and move. So we have to now that they're gone, we have to now prepare the house for sale.
Got you.
Because I don't know what next year's bringing. I had a job lined up in Indiana, and it was at my brother's company, which he sold and still works for. And now he told me, he goes, well, they're probably going to hire somebody other than you.
Damn.
Yeah, I kind of was setting up life for that to be my next move. Now, my next move, I have a feeling somebody I used to work for is going to call me up and say, hey, we got a new project. We want you on board. And then I'll just go do that. I don't know. But I don't think I'll be in LA much this year. I think it'll be like last year where I was gone all the time in 2022.
Traveling for
Traveling.
whatever happens to be next.
That's right. And now my new wife will enjoy that very much because she likes to travel and she's new to the United States. So to see these different cities with these different cultures and different historical things, I think she'll be extremely excited about that. When we
Oh,
talked
she's
about
gonna
it,
be
she
able to go
was.
with you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, you can't hire me if I can't bring her.
Oh damn. Oh
And
damn,
they're
that's
look, they're
nice.
still gonna give me everything they normally do. I don't require an extra car or anything like that, but I don't need to ask for anything more except for my salary. They pay me my salary. They pay me wherever I go. I get it like a fee, a per diem fee, and they don't need to give me a dime more for the per diem fees. I mean, salary goes up because it's cost of living, but it'll be okay. It's just when we're there, finding things for her to do in those communities that are going to be exciting for her, like dance class, volunteering at the zoo or some animal shelter and stuff like that. Those opportunities hopefully will be there. And every community needs volunteers. So I think she'll have no trouble being accepted as a volunteer
Oh, do you
somewhere to
do
help
you
out.
stay for do you stay for a while when you get one of these assignments?
I'm gone like 3 to 6 months. on
At a
some of them.
time. Oh,
Yeah, at a
okay,
time. I
okay.
had one that I was up for that was, I think it was like 2.5 years. And I thought that'd be great, but they hired somebody else. But I wouldn't have a house at that point. If I was going to be gone in 2.5 years, I'd just sell the house and save up my money for 2.5 years.
That makes a lot of sense. All
Hmm.
right, so today's the title of today's stream is "What You Know About Watch Night."
I don't know anything
And if
about
I
Watch
don't know
Night.
anything about Watch Night,
Wait a minute. I don't think I do. What is Watch Night, Pocket Locker?
so Watch Night is New Year's for religious Black people. Yeah, that's it's a whole chat. Have any of y'all heard of Watch Night before? Man, I'm out here. See, I thought we was
It's
gonna
not
do
like
this.
about Timex or Protect Philippe or
No,
Swatch. It's nothing like that.
no. I'm glad we'll do
Okay.
this because I'm
I,
sure a
I,
lot of
I,
people don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
I've been a Black person for a very long time. Um, I was not informed or aware of this. What am
Oh,
I?
okay.
What should I have? And this might be why the country's gone to hell. What was I supposed to watch for? But wasn't aware that I was supposed to watch for, so I
So,
didn't
so
watch
I,
for it, and now
I don't, so we might be able to we might be getting some corrective history, but as the lore is told today, it's kind of like you were literally in church and you were watching for it to become midnight because it's a sort of remembering when, like, I guess the slaves are supposed to be free as of January 1st, whatever fucking year they were freed, right?
okay.
And so the idea was they would have been watching for it to become midnight because that meant that they were no longer slaves. So then you're in church, like reenacting that watching. So you're watching the clock. You're watching the clock instead of watching the ball drop, basically. And I think that is how at least the Black religious circles that I'm familiar with, which is mostly like, that sort of gospel, Pentecostal, maybe they're Baptist or whatever, but the real, they're fundamental type evangelicals of various stripes. But that's what it's seen as. It's like an alternative to watching the ball drop. So you're not gonna go to some New Year's party and drink with your coworkers. You're going to go to church
Go to
and
church, sing
and
songs, and wait around.
yes, yeah.
Well, I look fine, and that's what you want to do at your time. Not everybody wants to sip champagne and drink rompope and
But
have a
no,
wonderful.
this is a big deal because
It
it's a
is.
yeah.
Oh,
It's like a big deal. If you're into it, then well, as I've seen it, there's kind of two approaches about it. I think some congregations, it's like time to show out, right? Yeah, like watch night service is going to be, it might be like we're going to throw down, right? Like we might be inviting guest choirs, we might be combining churches, we might be doing a meal or something like they're like, this is going to be the best time of the year for the church. Yeah, it's something everybody's been looking forward to all year, and we're gonna show out. This is gonna be dope. Other churches, I think, are like very serious, and it's about kind of not being they're trying to be more observant. They're trying to take it seriously.
and it's
But
not a
there's always
worldly
this with
thing.
churches.
Worldly.
Exactly, trying to make sure it's not a worldly thing.
Mhm.
Exactly. Um, but in either case, if you're like, say, a kid and this is something your parents are into, like you don't. have a choice. Like you're like you just better hope you go to one of those churches where it's something to look forward to.
Wow. Well, look, I don't know it all, but this is you have clips, do you not?
Yes, yeah, we're
I thought so.
gonna.
Now, audience, I earlier in the year, a few weeks ago maybe, sent Pocket Locker a clip, but the only God can do it. I think he played it on our hot program,
Yeah, we
previous
did. We
episode,
did.
with the Grinch dancing around, all this stuff. Does something like that occur during watch night where the organ is jumping and the congregation is
That's what I'm
sort of
saying.
dancing around? All right.
It could definitely lead to one of those type of situations.
Okay. Sounds
Now,
interesting.
there's something else I wanna talk about real quick before we go,
Okay.
which is a big thank you to you and all of yous out there in YouTube land, because apparently I've made the YouTube partner program. So
Hey!
if you go to my channel, we got the little money icon for super stickers and super chats. And yeah, man, it all started with getting ready for this here hot program with my one
It,
black friend. So
it all started with
um
a humble field and a dream.
yeah. Well, I low key suspect we'll be in the partner program for about a week until YouTube realizes what
You
my
talking about
content
what?
actually is, and that'll be that. But we'll we'll
Hmm.
enjoy it as long as it lasts. So pretty cool, pretty cool. But yeah, thank you all so much, because it definitely wouldn't happen without my one black friend and all of the wonderful viewers and mods and chatters and supporters. So been great. All right, so look, we doing Black History today, man. That's what we're doing. All right, let's go ahead and get into I'm trying to figure out which one of these. We'll start with this one. This guy seems a little. We'll go with this. All right, we're gonna hit it with the Autobots transform and roll out, and we're gonna blow upsuate the
New Year's Day is
situation.
widely recognized as the first day of the new calendar. However, its tradition was not always standard, and the history of New Year's Day is an intriguing blend of customs, beliefs, and practices across different cultures. But for African Americans, our celebration of New Year's Day is linked to the little-known Watch Night and Heartbreak Day. So let's talk about it. And if you like stories like this, you can find more stories like this at OneMikeHistory.com. Support the channel, my Patreon page, my Buy Me Coffee in the description below. Give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, and please support the YouTube channel. But without further ado, let's get started. The earliest recorded celebration of New Year's Day dates back to 4,000 years to
Maya sent me my first super chat. Look at that. Boom. I don't even know how this works. So we try to make sure we get this, make sure we star these and
All right,
pull them
Maya.
up. Oh, it's a super sticker. What's the difference between a super
I don't know.
pair character doing a shaka sign with his hand saying cool? All right, Maya, have you heard of Watch Night? Because I don't know how many of us is in here that may have actually heard of or been to one of these festivities. Thank you so much for the super sticker, though, Maya. That's awesome. We out here, baby.
ancient Babylonians. Unlike the current calendar system, which begins
Maya's like,
the
nope.
new year in January, Babylonians celebrated in mid-March on the new moon after the spring equinox, which is the day which has the equal amount of sunlight and darkness. This event was a massive religious festival called a Kinu. It spanned 11 days, during which different rituals and ceremonies were conducted. In 46 BC, Julius Caesar introduced a solar-based calendar known as the Julian calendar, and it replaced the flawed Roman lunar calendar that had been used since the 7th century BC. This new calendar introduced the concept of a leap year, and Caesar declared that January 1st was the first day of the year to honor Janus, which was the Roman god of beginnings and tradition, and was portrayed with two faces facing in opposite directions. While January 1st
He
is
just moved the
accepted as New Year's
calendar.
Day in Rome, many cultures continue to
That's
celebrate New
crazy.
Year's Day on different dates that were significant in their own calendar. Usually this involved agrarian or astronomical events. For example, during the Middle Ages, in Western Europe, New Year's Day was celebrated on March 25th, which was the Feast of Annunciation as the beginning of their year. Gradually, Western countries would move back to January 1st. This shift largely occurred due to the Gregorian calendar's adoption,
It's supposed to be
named
shift.
after Pope Gregory
Yeah, I
XIII,
figured,
who introduced this calendar in 1582. The Gregorian calendar aimed to bring about a shift in Christian celebration of Easter closer to the time of year it was observed when the early church was founded. Today, New Year's Day signifies a fresh start and a chance to make changes for the upcoming year. Celebrations differ across cultures, but the common themes are societal gatherings, fireworks, singing, music, parades, and shared
Oh,
meals,
there's gonna be
as
fucking
well as a
fireworks
hope
tonight.
for a prosperous and peaceful forthcoming year.
I
However,
didn't think about that. I might have to deal with fireworks. If I don't go to the fireworks, I don't want to hear the fireworks.
I wanted to share the best fireworks display. If you're going to watch online, go to some of the drone footage that people post. It's extraordinary to see the fireworks, what can be, from the point of view of drones.
Yeah,
I
no,
just really
that's
encourage
yeah.
it. You're in the show, basically.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty good idea. What was there was something else. Oh, I was gonna ask the chat if you guys, so you could. Oh man, it's gonna be hard. But yeah, and answer the question of the day, which is if you've heard of or been to a watch night service, but also if you make resolutions or not.
Oh, I used to.
Yeah, probably
Yeah.
shouldn't. I think everybody knows they don't work, but it's still interesting if people do that or not.
They
I
work
try
if you
not to,
do.
because then I'm like, if it doesn't work, then I won't get the thing, and if it's important, then I should like not make a resolution about it. I should just do
Mhm.
it.
Again, we have another holiday, which is a double-edged sword for African Americans. Before the Civil War, the first day of the year was often referred to as Hiring Day or Heartbreak Day. These names came about because of the heartbreak of the situation of enslaved people that used to face on the first day of the year. Enslaved individuals were forced to wait and sit in suspense to find out whether or not they were going to be rented out to another family, household, or separated from their own families. This practice of renting them out was alternative to selling a slave and a beneficial way for their white enslavers and hirers to make money. The idea of hiring out an enslaved person was not uncommon in the South. Historian Alexis McCrossan would explain that hiring day was a large economic system. Most of these payments and debts were taken care of on New Year's Day. This activity did take place all year long, but it was especially concentrated to New Year's Day. On this day, contracts between buyers and sellers, as well as between enslaved and their owners, could start and end. These agreements would often be conducted between friends and family members, businesses, associates, and enslaved people were sometimes exchanged in town squares, courthouse steps, and even on the side of the road. It's important to remember that enslaved people were viewed not as a human being, but as an investment and an asset, and as such, they could be rented, used as collateral, repossessed, and sold.
All right, so that's what we're really here to talk about, which is and in my family, this is really what this opportunity was about. It was opportunity to really reflect on the history of African Americans, and to not forget the what our people have been through,
Right. The trials and tribulations.
and yeah, and it's sort of, and I think it's important now because there are so many people, and I'm definitely experiencing it so much in the YouTube space. There are so many people who play at this. There are so many people who play at the racism and the bigotry, and to be honest, I'm gonna tell you to you like this. I'm real honest. There's a lot of people who don't care about racism. They don't care at all. They don't care about the cruelty. And I'm gonna tell you, I really feel a lot of these people, you could just identify them as Republicans, right? There's a lot of that because, and I know it's not hashtag not all whatevers, but there's a lot of people who just blatantly overlook the racist policies that party advocates for. So that and again, it's just a cold observation. Like they've literally accepted, oh yeah, these people are definitely racist. But let's go, Brandon. So I'm just with it. So it's crazy to not recognize the cruelty, the inhumanity in the history of how we treated Black people, and the fact that when we talk about progress and economic justice and something as something that seems as we had gotten as used to as like affirmative action and education, like we're really talking about trying to make up for basically a generational curse. And it is shocking to me that right now in 2024, in just a few hours here, people are still okay with the dehumanization of other people just because of their color of their skin. It's baffling, but it is the world we live in. So I think for the people that do care, and it's important to help inform all of us about what we're really talking about, right? And to me, I just think of that simply as the realities of the situation. And this is one of those cold, hard realities. Steph and I were having a conversation because Steph was going through her family history. By the way, check out Stephanie Helms, link in the description. But Stephanie was, when I first saw the document, the book, I said, "Oh, that's a dissertation," because there's a certain way it's bound. And the way it's bound in format and everything, I'm so used to seeing being around like when grad school and university, like every time I see something that's bound that way, it's a dissertation. And it had that size to it, right? So I was thinking about the fact that one of my great aunts, my grandfather's sister, put together sort of like a history of our family based on like what she could find. And it was quite an impressive effort, and it's how I know I can track the sort of ministry in my family all the way back to the plantation and stuff like that. But it looks like a very well done book report, right? Because it's just like, it's very thin and it's got like some, it's got like some protective covering and stuff to make sure that's happened. And she made different copies of it for members of the family. But it shows the disparity in how much of our history we have. It's a cold, hard fact of, just the difference in something as simple as records, right? If we're Black folks, we don't got records passed so far. Why? Because they didn't give slaves, they didn't keep our family histories the same with the same level of detail. No. And this is another one where you know, when some of us are not with it, like in terms of you know, we see things that are bigotry or dog whistles and stuff like that, and we'll kind of get into people like, I'm not going to tolerate that. um Part of where I think it's this generational memory of the dehumanization, right? And this is harking back to when we were literally sold in polite company, right? So if people, so let me bring the connection for people. It's like, and there's been certain situations. I don't want to go into names of it. There's been enough drama, and there's just been hours that, like, when I first started, you remember we went through all the different platforms and streaming apps, and you know, it was StreamYard one week and Whereby the next and whatever, right? We just went through a whole bunch of them. But when we were on StreamYard for a good while, it was nothing for people, because I think StreamYard like publicizes links and stuff like that. So it's easier to just find people who are hosting a StreamYard. And there was all sorts of people that would just come in and just want to say nigger a bunch of times on stream to me. And then there was or if I didn't let them on, they like put it a bunch of times in the chat or whatever. But even just like when we sit around and have some of the conversations we have on YouTube with some of the people we have, it's super cool, because it's like, I'm not going to sit here and have someone who I don't think actually sees me fully as a person, like, come into my community and be cruel about it. I'm not gonna do that. It's the same, because again, you're thinking back to the same people who literally had to, because this is polite company. You know what I mean? And that's what really gets me about these issues, right? Like, people negotiated their debts, right? If you owed me a certain amount of money or whatever, we'd be like, hey, I'll rent you a slave for 6 months. We'll settle up on New Year's Day, right? And then, you know, you rent and sell slaves and then go have dinner. You know what I mean? Like that sort of cruelness of, this was happening in front of everybody. This is just the way life was.
Yeah.
And so it's crazy, because I think so many people think that they would not permit slavery, like, but it's weird. If I think most of us, if you lived during this time, I think the cold hard reality is most people would have just accepted it as part of life. You know, they may have you know, if there was the where they sold slaves, like, and you're walking down Main Street and there's the, you know, the slave selling shop is over here and there's a furniture store over here, you know, when they walk by that part of the street, they may have preferred to turn to the left and check out the furniture, right? Because, oh, look at the nice furniture, I don't have to look at the Negroes hanging in the windows. But yeah, it's yeah, it's just crazy to think how much of this was just part of everyday life. It really, really boggles the mind. God.
Slavery has been around. I don't know what the first civilization to enslave people was, but it's certainly been around for maybe what 6,000 years or more. The idea of owning another human being is disgusting, and there were people for whom it became beneficial, and they showed other people that it could be beneficial, and it just became widespread. Pretty much any culture you can think of on the planet has probably had their people enslaved at one time by another culture, or even from within. So it's not, unique to anybody, any culture's experience. It'd be more unique if your people had never been enslaved than if they had. And I don't know how many cultures could raise their hands and say, "Oh, our people have never been enslaved." Um, when this is like a side thing, but there are a lot of people who will say that the ancient Hebrews were black, and I've mentioned on Hot Program before. I love this discussion.
The
I
black
think it
Hebrew Israelites.
well, not like those guys with the shouting people down instead of listening to them when they have an opposing viewpoint. Not that. I mean, Peter, Paul, Moses, people who make the statements that those people were black
Oh,
people. I find it fascinating when it's argued, when this topic is argued. For instance, I sent Pocket Locker a link to a thread on YouTube that I'm involved in where I've had more responses from me saying about this guy's painting, "This is beautiful. Who is it supposed to be?" And all these people coming at me saying, "Oh, this is Jesus. You clearly know who it is." You know what? I don't know who it is. One person pointed out it looks like Christian Bale. I know that when I read the Bible, it doesn't have Jesus as a white guy. His hair is white and curly. Well, in this man's painting, the guy's hair wasn't curly
but
and
see,
it wasn't white. It
that is a very powerful example that you're talking about. First on there's just like a guy who posted a short video on, I don't know, was that Instagram, of a painting he made,
mhm.
clearly of white Jesus, and he said, "I never got so much hate for a painting I did."
Yeah, and I don't know why anyone would who would hate what he did. Like this is
It was a
it's
good
artwork,
painting.
folks.
It was a good
It's
painting. It's a good
tremendous.
painting.
Yeah,
It's a
like
good painting.
there's
Very good painting.
if you don't like this painting, maybe you don't like art.
It literally
You
could
know,
have it literally just could have been a random person on the street, and it would have just been he's clearly very talented.
very talented.
But the funny thing was he said, "I've never had so much hate for a painting." But if you looked at the comments for the actual post,
It's
there was
praise.
no
There's
hate for the
no hate.
painting at all.
No,
None.
I got more hate than he did.
Yes.
He must be talking about something else.
Yes.
It's not on that post. It's not on that post.
So I honestly think a lot of those cases they make it up.
I,
They make it
I, I
up.
thought that immediately
Yeah.
when I saw it, like
Yeah.
who's gonna be opposed to this? I've had not to make this about that because hopefully he'll come on the Hot Program. I've asked him if he'd like to be. Um, there are so many people arguing with me, telling me I need to read the Bible, I need to do my research. It was my favorite thing people say, do your research. I'm like, you are probably seriously unlearned. I'm glad you saw 2 YouTube videos and now you're an expert. But when I come back at them with the facts, right? When I state what the evidence is, when I give them chapter and verse, by that time, it's hard to know if they even saw it because there's more than 200 replies in this thread. So I don't know. And I'm seeing that they're arguing with each other and stuff like that. But for us non-believers, one of the most frustrating things that can happen is when a believer says, you didn't understand what you read, like what you didn't read it. You're coming at me saying I didn't understand it. What can you tell me about this without Googling? And the answer is very little. They can tell you very little. They don't really understand. I go through that with people on Facebook. Like, look, I'll explain to you why my point of view is different. Let me explain to you why the sacrifice of God, letting his son die for our sins for 3 whole days, isn't as great as it sounds to you. Because it was 3 days, Jesus knew he would be brought back from the dead. God said he was going to bring him back. So what's
All right, but let me
what
tell you, let me get this other thing about that picture though.
okay.
It's something I was thinking about that I would really love to challenge Black Christians with, because the picture was very obviously white Jesus, right? And we can say that because that's a meme, y'all. Y'all know what white Jesus looks like, right? He's white, he's got the beard, he's got the long hair, he's got the what's that? Papyrus colored tunic or whatever, right? Like,
which is probably not what he would have worn.
And so here's
if he's a rabbi.
Here's what's so interesting about that, because because we don't get to really talk about these images necessarily in the social media space. It was a signal to all of the Christians on the internet exactly who it was, right? Because it was right. In other words, the reason so many Christians were able to show him support for the picture and the painting was because they knew exactly who it was. Like, none of them were like, is that an actor? Is that from is that Mel Gibson? Where did you meet this subject? Like, everybody knew it was white Jesus. So everybody could go straight into their bless you, brother. This, Jesus is
Christ
king,
is king.
and all of this, all of this. They could just do all of that, right?
Yeah.
So what's so funny to me about these conversations about, Black people trying to, say those historical figures were Black and all that type of stuff. It's just funny because I think so many modern Christians don't realize sort of the racism baked into the imagery, because had he painted a Black person with all of the same exact features and everything, except it was just Black, right? It would have either led to a whole conversation, like
it would have been different.
It would
Jesus wasn't Black. Do your research.
Thing, right? It would lead to this whole thing. Or maybe people just not, but definitely people would not have, especially most white Christians, right? They would not have just said Jesus is Lord and Jesus is King and da 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 da. And that is something Black people need to think about, because it's just so funny to me. Like, my family, for instance, like a few years ago, I was at my mom's for Christmas with my then girlfriend, and my mom, the gift my mom actually got my grandparents, this is what I think about this, was a Black manger scene. So it's the whole, people had the manger scene used for Christmas with this little stall and the baby in the manger and Mary and Joseph and the three wise men and all that, right? It was one of them scenes of like really like nice hand sculpted like figurines, but they were all Black. Growing up in my house, in the hallway, we had this big photo of the Last Supper, except it was all like super jacked Black dudes with dreads. Right. And so what I'm getting at is there really is this racial tension baked into the imagery, right? Where it's important for people of color to imagine, real or otherwise, that those figures are Black, right? They need to believe that Moses is Black and Jesus, and Jesus could have been Black and all of this type of stuff. But at the same time, that imagery would be totally and absolutely rejected by mainstream white evangelical Christians. And it speaks to this racial tension, right? That nobody wants to talk about, but it's still there.
I've said on Hot Program before, if it could be proven that Jesus was Black, Christianity's over. It dies that day. It dies that day. And
which is funny because he obviously wasn't white.
He wasn't. So here's the thing. I want Pocket Locker, if you could put this on the screen, open a Google search bar and type in how far is Nazareth from Egypt? Because Egypt is in Africa. So just Google that, and then I'm going to have you and put it on the screen. We need to see how far it is. And then I'm going to give you
400 to 500 miles.
Okay. Now, how far is Nazareth from Germany?
um, 42 hours,
How many
4,000
miles is that?
kilometers.
Let's give it in miles. We got to keep apples to apples.
2,464 miles.
Okay. So, how far is Nazareth from London? London, England.
3,000 miles.
Okay. How far is Nazareth from, well, we don't have to prove he's not an American, from Moscow?
Same, about 2,200 miles.
Okay. How far is Nazareth from Prague?
2,200 miles.
How about Tokyo, Japan? How far away is Nazareth from Tokyo, Japan?
That's 5,600 miles.
Okay. How about China?
Wait,
Let's say,
we know it's far. It's far.
does
Where are we going
anybody
with
get,
this?
okay. So if you consider how I lived in Bulgaria, and I asked a friend of mine, why are Bulgarian people so good looking? Their answer was fantastic. He said, Bulgaria is on the way to a lot of different places. And when these other cultures went to war, they came through here, and he said they often took Bulgarian wives or husbands, and they raped. So the ethnic mixture or admixture, I think is the term, of Bulgarians
Yes.
is very blended actually. So Bulgarians are turning up the best of everything, sort of, in how they look. And I commented to a friend at that time. I was like, it's funny. As I walk around Sofia, I see the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life every 15 minutes, because there's one that's prettier than the next. It's like it was a mind blowing thing. But he said that's why you get that there. So these places, like around the Nazareth region, Jerusalem, if you didn't have these armies tearing through there,
Mm.
invading from other places that were further away, you're not getting the sort of blending of skin tones that you might. Yeah, you'll have traders always, but the traders don't take over the population. An army could, right? So the fact that for me, one of the most convincing things is that Jerusalem's proximity to nations that we know were led by Black people, that to me, that's sort of the best case for it. If you look in even Turkey's still far, far away from Nazareth.
Oh yeah.
Um, and YouTube Punk, how far is Nazareth from Buckshot, Tennessee? Fair question, YouTube Punk.
I think so. I think what's interesting is that I think they've, because this has been documented. I think many cultures do this. Um, I think it's pretty amazing. I think it says a lot about us, especially in the current world context, because I think p- I think we do still I think we do still have a lot of racialized thinking, just because of
We
the
do.
way things have played out on the world stage. And so, like, that was always one thing that was interesting to me. Like, I get, I definitely get, um, like, retelling stories of, for instance, like superheroes or cartoon characters as with like a more diverse cast or more diverse representation. I think that's a social good, and we should continue to do that, right? But at the same time, we should remember that, like, you know, sort of the beauty of legend is that, you know, you can reimagine imagine Hercules as whoever the hell you want. Who cares? It's Hercules. Like, is it, you know, it's supposed to be a fictional character that tells us a story. But it's different with these religious characters because there's so much of a import placed on the history, whether there's history there or not. So yeah, it's really interesting, yeah. So I would love, I'd love for him to do this social experiment and just repost that painting with a black Jesus
with a black Jesus
and see what happens. But yeah, I think black Christians should realize that most of their white counterparts would never accept black
now,
religious figure.
I've asked, whoa, we off topic. I've asked white people before, people I love, right? Not strangers, people I love. Would you still be a Christian if Jesus were black? The idea to them, because again, these are people I love, right? So I know them, I love them. The idea is entertaining to them. And because it doesn't matter, my skin tone is not a factor with them. I think it makes it easier for them to say, sure, I would. I'd still worship Jesus. But if we could go to a Trump rally or a Klan rally, and those are not the same thing. I'm not equating the two, but there's some overlap there of individuals who are fond of those things, and ask the same question, we would probably be repeatedly told that Jesus is not black. But I'm like, that isn't the question. If he were black, would you still worship him? And the Klans people would have to be like, nah, I'm out. I'm out. That's it. There's no more. YouTube punk, I'll equate them.
Yeah, I was saying the same thing. YouTube punk.
because it goes against their paradigm. I think the thing that's important to realize about religious figures is, in a way, they're a commodity. The painter, when he paints a picture of Jesus, he knows that'll sell, and it doesn't matter what a price he attaches to it. I have a friend who's a painter. He'll put about 600 hours in one of his photorealistic paintings. He'll sell them for, like, I don't know, $13,000 to $16,000, something on that order, and he gets it because people know what they're looking at. They can respect the amount of time he's put in, and when you think about it, he's working below minimum wage. But he loves doing it, so he gets that extra cash flowing in. Now, this guy, I don't know that he takes nearly the amount of time that my friend does, because he doesn't do. It's not photorealistic, right?
Right.
But it's still brilliant, and there's going to be somebody who will gladly separate themselves from their money to hang that on their wall. And everybody visiting their house, or nearly everybody, unless they know me, where I stroll in there and go, that's beautiful. Who is that? And they're going to have to instruct me that it's Jesus. And then I'm going to have to tell them, well, it can't be. It can't be.
Right.
So anyway, and I've said in that same thread, we do not know what Jesus looked like. The best thing we have, other than what's printed in the Bible in miniature, it's very little said, is that a Robert Eisler reconstruction from the Slavonic Josephus. That's the best. He's dark skinned. He has short hair. He has an undeveloped beard. He has a hunched back. This guy's painting, as one person said, it looks like Christian Bale.
Yeah. But see, this is, but yeah, let's get back to this. But yeah, this is what we're starting to think about, and we're starting, as always, to now see why this establishes two different traditions. For white folks, oh, New Year's is that time. Make your resolutions. Let's settle up our debts. Let's have a celebration. We're about to enter in the new year. Black folks is like, I'm not sure we're gonna have a family on January 2nd, so it's a different ball game.
An enslaved person by the name of Lewis Clark would speak about this in 1848, stating that of all the days of the year, the slaves dreaded New Year's Day worst of any. But all this would change on January 1st, 1863, and this was a pivotal moment in American history, but most notably for African Americans. This was the day that Abraham Lincoln officially enacted the Emancipation Proclamation. In the summer of 1862, after border states had turned down his offer for compensated emancipation, Lincoln had the realization that the key to winning the Civil War and uniting the country again was directly connected to the issue of slavery. And from that point on, Lincoln decided that dealing with slavery was going to be a crucial part of ending the Civil War. So, in September 22nd, 1862, Lincoln announced the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation. The basic idea behind this was that anyone enslaved in states or parts of states.
Real quick, can we talk about the hat? First off, the hat looks so much better in an actual photograph than the costume hats. The costume hats look silly. This hat is actually kind of fresh, but it's crazy. Like, how did the president of the United States get away with wearing a crate? Like, that hat is crazy.
It's a stovepipe hat, which was probably fairly stylish at the time.
It was definitely stylish. Did a lot of people wear them? It seemed, I don't know.
Well, see, that's at a time where men a lot of times would wear hats. That was part of the everyday dress. Just like when you look at photos of the 50s of people going out on dates, the men are wearing suits. Now, now you're looking at people like, I wish that person would pull their pants up. And they're out with their kids and they're sagging too. So, styles change over time. But I think for Abraham Lincoln, this is a good look, as it would be for many people. And on my wedding day, I had my top hat. I just forgot to take it to the church. I had it.
Is that why you didn't have a hat on?
That's I would have taken it off anyway, but I would have wore it there and walked into the church with it and talked to my fiance, like, how long you want me to wear this thing before we got married. But she likes the hat. She was surprised that when she saw it, but it's like a magician's top hat, very similar to a stovepipe hat. A little bit of a difference in shape, I think, but very similar.
Proclamation. The basic idea behind this was that anyone enslaved in states or parts of states which were still rebelling after January 1st, 1863 would be set free. There was a catch, however. If any Confederate state decided to rejoin the Union before January 1st, their slaves would not be freed. As the day drew closer, enslaved people and
that's crazy too. Like, Yang, don't meet your heroes. Don't learn about real history, because it just paints Lincoln in a very different light. Because
he's gambling. He's gambling here. He's seeing if they'll call his bluff.
Yeah, and it's also taught like Lincoln freed the slaves, when really it's like Lincoln came up with some fucked up ass compromise and was actually willing to offer terms of continued enslavement to states that would comply, right? And that should be remembered, because that's a far less heroic deed. Again, he was willing to use black people as a bargaining chip. Like, it's crazy. But again, this is the real history of America, and this is why they don't want. This is why it's why conservatives don't want history taught in schools, because this is the facts of life, as they were.
I think the conservatives who don't want this sort of thing taught are making a mistake. The reason why that saying past is prologue, I'd say the colors of the average American, the color of the average American is changing. It's swinging away, in that before too long, I think it's 2053 or something like that, there'll be more brown people than white people. Well, if in 100 years, 200 years, they decide to be a-holes to white people and you're in an out group because you're white, and they start pulling the same crap on them, that was pulled today, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, and so on in US history, all they're doing is recreating the same sad situation. Rather than saying, look, kids, we grew out of these mistakes. We grew out of these faulty ideas and we became a cohesive society. We managed to get rid of this ill, this societal ill, this societal ill. And the future, I wrote it down one day. It was really beautiful. Like the future is the debt we owe.
But
Wait,
see, that's the
progress is the debt that we owe to the future.
but that's the thing. They haven't. That's why they don't want them to tell that story. It's because we haven't grown out of that. I mean,
I'll disagree. I'll disagree, Pocket Locker, because your grandfather probably had stories like my father did. My father was a much older guy, where he said he couldn't stay in certain hotels because there was a Klan rally down the street. The hotel owner would say, "Yeah, don't stay here. They're having a Klan rally down the street." So he would tell my black father this.
I think
Right?
there's been. I'm not saying there hasn't been like that. I mean, like we've obviously changed things quite a bit in terms of, but I mean that people haven't changed. Like in other words, the people that don't want their kids to learn Black history largely are intentionally racist. Like, to me, like I'm just saying, like, you know, I think they know what they're up to. But my point is, those people have not grown. Like we like to tell ourselves this, because we got to keep the two things in mind, right? They're different, right? There's like, what is the, you know, the legal and social history of a country? That's fine, but that's not necessarily where the individuals are at, right? Like, because for instance, like, people will say the most segregated place in America is a church on Sunday morning, right? What I'm saying is that reflects a way in which we haven't necessarily put all of that stuff in the past. Like we you know what I mean? So it's complicated. I like, because I don't want to disrespect like the slavery and segregation and some of those things. You know, they are an ugly part of our past, and we have, at least in terms of our legal structure, you know, changed those things, right? But I do think we're too quick to give ourselves a pat on the back, as though those differences don't still dictate how we treat each other today, when they do, right? Like, because it's not like people done this. Like, there's something like, I don't know, like maybe like 70% of white Americans like don't know a Black person or something. Like, they're not, like, it's not just a church thing. Like, I mean, like, we're like really like, people go to live in neighborhoods where there aren't any of us, and they want to work at places where there aren't any of us, right? And so it's crazy, especially because, you know, I'm someone who's fortunate enough to you know, have had a privileged education and some good opportunities for work and things like that. But I mean, I'm still dealing in times where we're the only one, right? Like, when I was going through grad school, me and Kruma, my good friend, who's now a professor at the University of Illinois, we were both in the same lab, but we were technically in, because our advisor's technically in 3 different departments. But we were like the only one in our departments. We just happened to be in the same lab. So it's telling you, you're still dealing in a time when you could still literally be the only one. Ain't no and not even no faculty. Like, it was the same way when I was at Penn State. There was no other Black grad students or Black faculty, none of that. And then have it concentrated. so that one lab is like carrying the diversity for like multiple departments. Basically, we had an advisor who cared, and probably the only advisor who cared. You see what I'm saying? Across multiple departments. It's crazy. So yeah, I don't know. This is a great conversation. This is really where the rubber meets the road, and I'm wondering where people are at. Because when you look at the people, right, who are either bringing PragerU into the school or pulling their kids out, and they won't shut up about woke. Let's just be real, right? Every time we have to talk to these people, they're railing about woke, and they've at least learned that literally means they're anti-LGBTQ stuff, they're anti-CRT, they're probably anti-feminism, they're definitely anti-socialism, right? And so it's like, who are these people?
Well, look, I think when it comes to some of the woke stuff, it's been painted wrong, right? What that really means has been painted wrong. It's been applied in places it was never meant to be applied. With the people being against teaching things like this Emancipation Proclamation, that America had slavery, that some white men, not all white men, could gather together and kill a black person. It's known who they are and not be prosecuted at all, not even be arrested for that person's murder. They could string him up in a tree, tar and feather him, and set his body on fire. No jail time, no trial. They could just know. They could take two black couples out of their car, and then one being pregnant, they could cut her baby out of her womb and hang her up along with the other three. No charges filed. That happened here in the United States. It is embarrassing for many fair-minded white people to know that is how other white people behaved. Just like it's embarrassing for me to see the black guy with his saggy, baggy pants and his underwear showing. It's just not the same because those guys killed people, right? They want to believe, the people who are embarrassed by that fact that their people kill people, they want to believe that America is a better place, and people like themselves made it a better place in spite of the racist behavior. And it probably hurts. I'm not a white person. I bet it probably hurts for them to have to hear that. It shouldn't. They have no need to be embarrassed by the behavior of people they don't even know, or strangers, right, that they'll never meet, people that were dead before they were born, or when they immigrated from another country to here. Those people were long gone, or they had,
Sure. My thing is they just need to realize that we have our own fight now, and it's how they deal with the fight that we're having today that will matter in terms of them, right? Because we can only, like you said, you can't be responsible for people you didn't know and times you weren't born and all this type of
we
stuff.
can't be responsible for people we know sometimes, right? Their behavior. We don't control that. You have to understand.
But the thing is,
go ahead.
The thing I'm talking about is just not relegating it to history, right? So I do the same thing with our students, right? So we have students, and they privileged students. They take a class with Rob Pennock, and he was the expert witness at Kitzmiller versus Dover. So when they learn about something like creationism versus evolution, couldn't be learning it from a better source. But there's this history where the scientists sort of came out good in the court cases in the past. And so the students think of it as a fight that is over because it was settled in the past. They don't realize they're about, answers in Genesis, in the Creation Institute, in the Rebecca Davises, even of the world, that there's just sprawling creationist movement, they're everywhere, right? And they're Mike Johnson, right? Because Mike Johnson was preaching anti-evolution sermons, and now he's the Speaker of the House, right? So that's what I'm always trying to impress upon them, is don't think this is over. This isn't over. Just because we won a couple of court cases in the past, this shit ain't over. They've just moved on to the next thing, and you gotta be educated and pay attention so that you're ready to deal with them. And it's the same thing here. It's just that's what I'm saying. Like, we should think about the fact that, yes, we want to say we put slavery in the past, we put Jim Crow in the past, but have we really dealt with racism if white Jesus elicits, amen, hallelujah, he saved my soul, yes, oh, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, yes, Lord, right? But black Jesus is like, oh, no, that's not accurate. You know, Jesus wasn't black. No, just stop playing, right? Because that's,
again, it is a personal relationship with Christ. There's a Japanese Jesus, Chinese Jesus, Sudanese Jesus, you name it. There's any culture that is seeing Jesus is seeing him. You'll have people that will see him through their eyes. I've mentioned that in Turkey, there's Black Madonnas, Poland, Black Madonnas. You can find them all over Europe. They're there. Now, why are they Black? It has been said it's because they're mythological characters. That's one of the reasons. Another reason is because they really were Black. Historically, they were Black figures in history. I don't know, but the mythological part sounds pretty solid to me. But I don't know that that's why they're Black. But we have to understand that in the Christian world, they are told that they have a personal relationship with Jesus. They are told that. We should not be surprised if they want to make Jesus in their own image. We should not be surprised, because that makes him more relatable to them, to those people. So for me, I didn't really care what color Jesus was when I was a Christian. I didn't really care. I didn't think about it that much. The Bible has Jesus changing forms. He's a shapeshifter in the Bible. So why should I be so surprised that maybe to this person over here, he is Black. This person over here, he's like what we see in the Middle East today, right? Like he's Iraqi or something like that. Or he's Palestinian, because they were in Palestine and Palestine's still there. Yeah. So, I don't actually know, but at least I gave myself the headspace to let him be whatever he was without my opinion flowing into it. In terms of his skin color, I didn't care. It's fascinating now. Okay, Jesus, YouTube punks is Jesus.
You might not, yeah. But I think overall, I think people care, which is it's very interesting. Yeah, it's weird. All right, let's go. We don't think let's.
By the way, Bucksnort is 6,400 miles away from Nazareth.
Yeah, it's not close.
It's not close.
It's put it that way.
Might not have been from Bucksnort. I don't know.
They drew closer. Enslaved people and abolitionists gathered together late at night where they held watch night events, often in churches or homes where they were safe. They kept vigil, praying and hoping for the time where the proclamation would become official. Watch night is a tradition that has its roots in Christian communities dating back to the 1740s, particularly between groups like the Methodists. It usually involved people staying awake throughout the night, praying and reflecting as they welcomed the new year. However, for African Americans, watch night had a deeper significance. As they prayed and sang hymns and read from the Bible, they awaited the break of dawn, which symbolized more than just a brand new day. It was a dawn of freedom that they had eagerly been waiting. This was a spiritual and historical turning point rather than just the start of a new year. It was a very important time, filled with hope for almost 4 million enslaved African Americans. As the years passed, Watch Night evolved to be much more than an annual remembrance of the Emancipation Proclamation and became a central event of African Americans' religious and cultural heritage. Black Americans would use their diverse religious affiliations and congregate in church on New Year's Eve for Watch Night services, and this would commemorate the spiritual gatherings as an opportunity to give thanks, reflect on the past year, and pray for guidance for the upcoming year. Early Watch Night services would include singing hymns such as Freedom's Eve, sharing of personal stories, overcoming difficulties, reading from the Emancipation Proclamation, and praying till midnight as the church bells rang to welcome in the new year, and it brings in a new spirit of determination. And this represents an unwavering faith and strength that's always been an important part of the African American community. Food traditions relating to New Year's Eve in African American community are also closely tied to their history. During the time of slavery, black-eyed peas and collard greens were often the only foods that enslaved people were allowed to grow and cultivate. So these foods became a part of their New Year's Day traditions. The peas would symbolize coins, and their expansion while cooking represented the growth of wealth. Eating these on New Year's Day is believed to usher in financial success for the new year. The tradition of eating black-eyed peas owes a lot of significance to Vicksburg, Mississippi during the Civil War.
I think I
In
have black-eyed peas.
1863,
I should
the
make some
town
black-eyed
ran out
peas.
of food while it
I've
was
met the
under
black-eyed
attack,
peas.
and black-eyed peas.
Really? That's interesting.
The three guys before they were famous. Their manager was a roommate to a friend of mine that I worked with at Enterprise Rent a Car, and he goes, "Hey, me and him were hanging out, and his friend and the Black Eyed Peas came over. He goes, my roommate's here with the rap group He Advantages. You want to meet him?" I said, "Sure." And I walk in the living room, and will.i.am is there, and the other two guys whose names I sadly don't remember. But I said, my friend Brian, like, "Hey, this is my one black friend." And will.i.am was like, "We're the Black Eyed Peas." And they were nice enough. They gave me their Behind the Front CD, and they autographed it.
Oh,
So
cool.
still have
cool.
that. Yeah. It's the only CD I probably didn't try to throw away.
Yeah, you kept it.
yeah.
But yeah, gang, this is
so
so this is the meat and potatoes of the Watch Night tradition, right? It's services to commemorate that literally becoming free. So it's I'm glad we did this, because I was afraid, I was kind of afraid everybody was like already gonna know about it or whatever. But this is cool. Yeah. All right.
For YouTube Punk, I live in Los Angeles, and I don't know that I know anyone that became famous. I certainly don't know famous people, but I have met a lot of them as a result of living here and working in like places like Enterprise Rent a Car. You'd be amazed at how many celebrities only own one car, and they took their Porsche in to get it fixed or something like that. And I met Alex Van Halen that way. I don't know him. I didn't know him. I just met him. But yeah, a lot of people you just bump into, or you're having dinner and hey, what's that? That looks pretty good. And it'll just happen here. There's a lot of celebrities here.
All right.
Became a lifesaver, and from that point on, the lagoon was seen as lucky. On the other hand, collard greens usually symbolize banknotes, hence they were eaten to attract wealth.
I couldn't
However,
get collard
beyond the
greens for Christmas
symbolism,
fucking
these
stores
foods
out.
were also nutrient-rich, inexpensive facets of their culinary tradition and ensured sustenance and survival during harsh times. Accompanying these two key items is cornbread, which also adds the aesthetic and symbolism of a prosperous new year ahead. The golden color embodies the vibrance of gold as a universal symbol of wealth. Cornbread's history also points to its resilience and adaptation, as corn was one of the crops that was introduced to enslaved people. Interestingly enough, the culinary traditions of black-eyed peas, greens, and cornbread has spread beyond the African-American community and has been widely accepted across all Southern households. These dishes highlight the dynamic, evolving nature of African-American cuisine being adopted by the broader American culture. From Heartbreak Day to watch night until today. The traditional practices of the Black community has widened considerably. The Black community nationwide have adopted more universal traditions alongside their unique cultural practices. For instance, the idea of first footing, which is the first person to enter a household on New Year's Day, is seen as a bringer of good luck for the new year. That dates back to Northern England during the 8th and 9th century. Or making New Year's resolution, which
It's just,
is the universal practice of making a resolution for personal growth and self-improvement. That idea dates back to the earliest celebrations of New Year's Day and the Babylonians.
it's amazing how many of them are kind of superstitious. It's just,
I'm waiting for the symbolism of hot sauce to go with that black eyed peas and collard greens. I just look, it's just, yeah, you could just make. I talked to this woman who was studying sociology, and I said one of the most important things you need to understand about what you're studying is meaning. That will, if you just focus on what does this mean to people, and keep asking that question, you're gonna flourish in sociology, because cornbread is not just cornbread. A new car is not just a new car. I'm the first person in my family to go to college, right? That
it could
sort
be
of thing.
just
Like,
cornbread to me.
look, I work. I mean, I
Nothing
live near
wrong
a
with
place
that.
that sells great cornbread. The grocery store there sells great cornbread. It is only meant a bigger belly and happy, satisfied taste buds to me. There's no cultural significance to it for me, but I mean, we can find that for a lot of people, right? Most people will look at a menorah and say, "What's that?" But me, I know why that's there. You know, I usually will like photograph them if I see them because I find them interesting. But there's more to it than it just being interesting. So I don't know. Cornbread, though, I don't know that I've photographed cornbread. I might now.
Oh, it's
Just as a new meaning.
yeah. Some of it is worth photographing, I guess.
Both of these have significant acceptance within Black communities, and both melded together with African American traditions, making New Year's celebrations a true melting pot of old and new. New Year's Day isn't just about a countdown to midnight or making New Year's resolutions. It's the embodiment of spirit, hope, and determination that's being passed down through generations. Nowadays, these watch night services are a time for praise and to honor one's history, and New Year's Day provides an opportunity to reflect on the past and promote positivity for one's future. Thank you. I'm your host, Country Boy. This has been One Mic Black History. If you like stories like this, you can find more stories like this at One Mic.
All right. I'll drop a link to the channel in the chat. That was really, really well done. I really, really enjoyed that. So look, now y'all know, man. I'm glad we did this. There's your dose of Black history for the holidays.
Yeah.
And you know, something to keep in mind. But I think that, so one of the things that I think is so interesting about, you know, any of these sort of social issues is, for marginalized people, at least in my case, you know, it's something you deal with every day. You never know how much race factors in to any particular interaction or occasion you might have, right? And it could be something like, because it's something almost like you know, sort of any traumatic experience where, you know, something out of nowhere could happen and you just don't know, or just the way you're impacted by something you might hear on the news. But one of the things that I think gets lost in any of these things is sort of the pervasiveness of it, the everydayness of it, and how that transforms even just your experience of the calendar. So yeah, it's like even something as simple as New Year's, right? It means something very different for people that honor this tradition and understand what it means. Like in my family, it was a pretty big deal. I think my grandparents always did watch night. I think I've done it at least once, that I did it with them and maybe at my other church. For me, you know, playing was always different. It was always like it was always actually a fun time to play, because there's a lot of music. So, but yeah, it's just it's something I always think about it when New Year's comes around. That's why I was like, oh, we should do a show about watch night services. But yeah, you know, I slavery is crazy, right? And it's a history that I don't think we take an opportunity to think about. And we talk about dehumanizing people, and it's I hate to say it, but it's a word that kind of loses its meaning through time because you get so distanced from it. It just describes an entire period, but it does so very vaguely. Right, like I forget what we were talking about one time, but we actually went through and we were looking at pictures from slaves, and like it was insane. It would put you off your lunch, but that was the everyday reality for these people.
Yeah.
And something like this, you know, thinking about how, you know, people with means, you know, for them, New Year's was a time to, like I said, to pay up, to settle debts, to, you know, build community, essentially, to reinforce bonds. It was a joyous occasion. But for the slaves, like, it could literally mean having members of your family sold off because you were the bargaining chips. And we just lose sight of not only the cruelty and the barbarity of slavery, but the way the economics disintegrated the families and the reality of what it means to buy and sell people. And the fact that part of our history is while this was going on, people just went about their business because this was routine business. And so, yeah,
That's just the way it is.
it's literally
That
just the
probably
way
was
it
said a
is.
lot.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, we just got to keep fighting a good fight. And, yeah, we'll you know, that's what I said. Like it matters how we deal with it now. It matters. That's why it matters that we remember and that we respond to the current challenges appropriately. This is why it's important this is why CRT is important, right? It's why it's important that we teach children about history. And
I had to learn about Roman history outside of my Latin class. Why?
yeah,
Why?
you have to
It's
learn.
not
Yeah.
American history. Why do I have to learn about Rome, ancient Rome? Why? For YouTube Punk, I'm not YouTube Punk. UC Love. I'm wondering if slavery by the general public was treated like homeless are now. Just walk past it because it's not your problem. I think you might enjoy UC Love going to, I think it's Gutenberg.org. It's a bunch of books from over the centuries that are there available as PDFs that are downloadable. Used to be free. I haven't gone there in a while and downloaded anything, but they had accounts of life from slaves, people who were still slaves, people who were freed. And sometimes you'll see those pop up on YouTube where somebody's reading them aloud as well. I've downloaded a few. I've not read any of them yet. I just haven't made time to do so. But it may be interesting to see their perspective of how life was. But I'll tell you this: one thing I do know that you're going to find objectionable language in there. You just will, but it's not coming from you. Just keep that in mind. It's coming from the individual who's telling their story, how they see other people. And I'm one of the weird people in the world that thinks the N word is racist, no matter who says it. If my
Interesting.
best friends from my childhood, the black ones said it, I still think it's racist.
No, it's not.
And
I mean,
people look at me
it's
like,
not weird. It's not weird. There are people who think
well,
that.
but people look at me and they don't understand. Like, well, but black people could say that. I'm like,
Yeah,
some
yeah,
do.
black
I,
people
I would I
can.
would
Those
I would hear I would hear my
I'm one of
grandmother
them.
say it. I would hear my grandmother say it and be so surprised. Like, but she grew up in the South. It's the only place she had ever lived. You know,
Yeah, my grandparents would
um,
never say it. They're just too
but
Christian.
but the whole slavery's right in front of you thing, no doubt, I would say if you were in a society where slavery was common, you could be a white person that might have had two or three friends or even more that happened to be slaves. Why? That person might have come to work on your home. That person might have, they might be the person you buy bread from or alcohol from because they work from somebody who manufactures those things. So you might actually get to know and have an interest in that person, but there is that sort of, but that's their lot in life perspective to it, where that's maybe that person didn't choose to be that way, but those circumstances are hurled upon them and they're living in those circumstances. And we sort of look through the glass window and see them inside of that. It doesn't mean that they had no compassion, but they might have felt quite helpless, or they might have seen that
Hmm.
person as perfectly happy, depending on what their interactions were, right? If they saw that person tied to a tree and being whipped, it'd probably be pretty upsetting if it was someone that they liked, or even someone they didn't know. Like, what could this person do? What could they have possibly done to deserve what's happening to them? But this is a time that we're referring to when in the South, let's say the traditional white family might be in their wagon on their way to church and they'll see black bodies hanging from a tree. That's it. They might see in the old West, you might see white bodies hanging from trees or Chinese bodies hanging from trees too. Because
It's
the
just
idea
cruel.
of uh, let's take justice into our own hands, even when it isn't necessarily justice, even when there is no trial, when there's just a disagreement, when you're just trying to put a show of force in there and show people you need to be scared of us because we control everything here. You don't.
All right. Well, yeah, that'll do it. Do you want to go ahead and give us a? Do you have any other closing thoughts?
I do. Don't rent your property out without a contract. Your contract has to adhere to state and local laws. Always get a deposit. Some of you will, you might not like this one so much if you rent currently from someone else. Raise your rent every year. Without fail, raise it every year because your expenses like electricity, gas, water, if you pay them, they go up every year. Your property taxes go up every year. And one of my tenants broke things,
Hmm.
didn't tell me about the damages. So when I go downstairs to inspect, I see the damages. He didn't pay his last 2 weeks' rent,
Hmm.
last week's rent, excuse me, just left. So protect yourself. And you, by doing that, you're protecting them. If you have to call the sheriff's department to evict them or anything like that, you have a piece of paper that tells that sheriff's deputy what the rules stated and what the person was supposed to adhere to and why you're evicting them or why you have a right to stand there and make sure your property isn't further damaged as they pack their things and go. So definitely protect yourself in that way. Also, a lot of new laws in your states probably going on the books as of January 1st. You may want to familiarize with some of yourself with what some of those are. I know I have a lot of work to do, but my wife is a former lawyer, so I'm pretty sure she'll be scrolling through that stuff because she finds California like mind blowing in some of the stupidity of the laws that we have here. just mind blowing, and it is. It's kind of mind blowing. But that's it. Those are my thoughts. Oh, and happy watch night, everyone. I guess, and happy New Year.
Yeah. Happy New Year to everybody. Yeah. Also, I'll be streaming my class this semester starting I think the third week in January. So definitely stay tuned for that.
That's next year. It's not this year.
Well, it's this semester, this
Okay.
coming semester, which is technically next. Yeah, whatever. Happy New Year's. Links in the description. If you guys want to hang out tonight, we'll be in Gather. There's a link in the description for that. There's also like a Ko-Fi link down there if you want to support the channel. Otherwise, we'll see you next time. As always, be good to yourselves
and each other.